Hey y'all, just wanted to share this little video real quick before I lay my ass down. So now I'm getting sleepy. I took some melatonin trying to get some sleep. And I wanted to get y'all's opinions on this video. Now, fair warning, trigger warning. This might trigger some of y'all. This is not the happy-go-lucky video that I normally be posting. This is one of those serious lifetime type of videos. Viewer discretion is advised. Now, there is not a whole bunch of cussing in this video. However, there are some sensitive topics that are spoken about in this video. Take a look.
I had made a comment and I said that kids that have parents with money are 10 times better than those in poverty. People went out their way to misunderstand, but I'm going to say this only once. When your parent doesn't have money, it puts them in a state of desperation, stress, and a scarcity mindset. Those three things right there is 10 times likely for that child to be abused. You have parents that are working 46-hour weeks and still have to take care of the home. You have women that have no village, and the only village they do have are families full of pedophiles. If this isn't for you, keep scrolling, because I'm so tired of people in the comments saying not me. If it's not you, keep scrolling. At the end of the day, kids are abused over and over again because the mothers are too busy working. The mothers can't find a babysitter. My mom knew that I was being touched on by a female cousin, and she still repetitively took me to that home, where I was not only abused by the cousin, but physically abused by her mom. If my mom had money, I would have been protected more and out of a lot of environments that caused me trauma. So when I made that post and people are commenting, oh, money doesn't mean nothing. Well, if money doesn't mean nothing, stop paying your fucking bills right now. If money doesn't mean nothing, then how are you clothed, fed, and sheltered? That's your problem, is y'all keep having kids and you don't have the resources. You think that love is enough, and it's not. And I'm so over it. Like, I'm really about to get so passionate about this shit because I'm so over you broke motherfuckers having kids and then want to be under somebody's comments talking about money isn't everything. Money doesn't make a kid happy. Bitch, yes it does. Yes it does. You don't know how humiliating it is when the book fair comes around and you can't get shit. And every kid is at school. Look what I got it. You don't know how it is to have new school clothes when you go to school. And my mom did do that, thankfully, because she grew up where she didn't get the new school clothes. Or I have friends that they mom couldn't buy them fucking clothes. They had to wear their older siblings' clothes. There are people that couldn't even eat at home. They had to wait until they had school lunch, making sure they get to school early so they can eat breakfast. So don't say that money doesn't mean shit. Money does make them happy. Money makes a kid happy when they're able to go on field trips. Y'all think that kids don't deserve experiences, and they do. They do. Don't say kids don't need it just because you're broke and you don't fucking got it. Kids need it, okay? So at the end of the day, motherfuckers could go back and forth with me all they want. But money makes the world go round. In this white man's world, money makes the world go round. In patriarchy, money makes the world go round. So in your little fantasy world that I hope you never bring a kid into, live in that tough love and that struggle alone. Bye.
Now, after I finished watching this video, two things came to my mind. The first thing came to my mind was this lady is very traumatized, and it sounds like she had a very traumatic childhood experience. The way she described, all her experiences she had as a low-income class family is what it sounds like. The other thing that came to mind when she spoke about, People with money live 10 times better than people without money. Well, that can be true and that can be false at the same time. In my opinion, I feel like the people who did have money, who were well off but not super wealthy, yeah, they may have had happier homes. They could afford to live. They could afford to breathe. They can afford to put food on the table, put clothes on their, children's backs. I get it. People who don't have money cannot do what people have money can do. However, I've seen both sides of the fence. Me, for example, we weren't extremely poor or low income class is what you call it. I would say middle class broke. That's the perfect description for my family. Growing up in a backwoods country town in Texas, Central Texas to be exact, middle of nowhere, 5,000 people small, I had to endure racism. I had to endure bullying, a whole bunch of BS. Now, did I come from a happy home? Yes, I did. Was I treated fairly? Somewhat. I felt like my siblings got the best of both worlds because they got more shit than I got. However, I was very fortunate enough that I had food on the table. I had nice, clean clothes on my back. And I was able to afford the school lunch. I wasn't on the program. My mom and them never had food stamps, to my knowledge, at least. My dad was the breadwinner of the home. He worked at the power plant day and night, putting in overtime. And I'm talking 12 hours plus every single day from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every day, literally damn near 6 days a week, even on his off time. And they made sure that we were happy at all that stuff. They struggled, but we didn't really see it. They hid it from us, honestly. Now, the reason I say that people who have money may be happier than people who don't have money, because they have the best of both worlds. The reason why I say it's true and false at the same time is because I've personally seen people who did have money, who appeared to be happy, put on a facade, and they weren't really happy at all. And the reason I say that is because I personally knew some people back home who had money, but weren't happy at all, not one bit, but put on a facade. Good example. There was a white couple, very well off, nice big ass house in the hills, had a nice looking young son. I think he was a high school student at the time when I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11. This is like back in the 90s. And, they had the freshest outfits, designer brand clothes, Polo, Louis Vuitton, you name it. And I believe the wife was like the church treasurer. And I believe her husband was like a deacon or something. They went to our church. But anyway, long story short, they put on such a good show and such a good facade, making it seem like they had all this damn money. But in reality, they were broke, but they were struggling. And they were taking out loans all over town. I later found out when I got older. The wife, the church treasurer, was stealing from the church. And that's how she could afford the nice, lavish lifestyle. When she stole from the church, she had designer clothes. She had nice cars. And people were trying to figure out, well, if you're just a church treasurer and this is your only source of income, how the hell are you affording all this nice ass shit? That's why. And I think the husband was low key scamming folks. Credit card scams. The last time I checked. I don't know. But yeah, they ended up getting ran out of town back in the day. And I was just like, wow, I would have never guessed. But yeah, it could be either way. People with money aren't always truly happy. Depending on the situation and where they're coming from and what they've been through, they can be happy and they can have a happier lifestyle for their children, but you don't know what's going on in their household either. You have to think and be logical for a minute. Some people that have money, And I see it all the time with celebrities, in the news. They have these nice big old mansions, fancy ass cars, white picket fence dog, 2 kids, typical traditional family. But at the same time, majority of them are being abused. Like the wives, their battered wives, getting their asses beat by their husbands, children being touched on by PDFs, and all types of nonsense. And you'll never know it until it comes out on the TV. And it's sad because people always think that the ones with money have the best lifestyles on planet Earth. But that's not always true. It may appear they have happier lifestyles to the poor folks or the low class people, the low income folks. But again, you don't know what's going on in that household. That household could be a whole entire damn nightmare. It could be a dungeon for the wife and children. You don't know what's going on in that house. And like I said, people put on a good show in front of other people. They put on a good facade. And a lot of them are low-key house broke. I've seen that too. I've seen people who lived out of their means, couldn't afford nice, lavish looking homes, and ended up getting foreclosures and house broke. You can have all that house and no money and take on all the loans and all the equity and whatever, trying to keep up with the Joneses, refinancing, blah, blah, blah. But yet your ass is still broke and struggling just like the rest of us. Now, in my opinion, I think it doesn't really matter whether or not you have money to live a happier lifestyle, because it's not money that makes the world a happier place. It's the people that make it a happier place. Money makes the world go round. Oh, yes, it does. But at the same token, money also breaks people a lot. And they just don't realize it. You know how the old folks say money is the root of all evil? My mom still says that to this day. That's just a lot of hogwash, in my opinion. It's not evil. It's the way that people use it to their advantage to get what they want. I feel like we live in a world where you can have money, but then you can also be very miserable. You can be very lonely. And you can just be very unhappy, even if you have millions of dollars. I've seen that too. Celebrities, unaliving themselves, millions of dollars, fancy ass cars, nice ass houses, and still not happy because they don't have anybody to share it with. That's the majority of the issues. Or just underlying mental illnesses that they never resolved. That's another issue, because there's a lot of people, a lot of crazy that need to be fixed, but they refuse to get it fixed because they think they're too perfect with their money. And then you got people who are in the projects, who don't have the opportunities to afford the finer things in life. And I get it. It sucks. You don't want to be in that position. Hell, I'm thankful we were never in that position as children. But some people make it a better situation, even though they live a shitty life. Majority of those people are the happiest ones, depending on the situation. Now, like I said, I can't speak for all people because I don't know what goes on in people's households. I don't know who's been touched on or whatever. But majority of the people who are low income, families who are getting food stamps and EBT cards and stuff like that, some of them be the happiest ones with little to nothing, because they have each other and they know how to cooperate with each other. And a lot of them know how bad the struggle is, because back in the day, you can go to grandma's house or Nene's house or Pookie's house and borrow some sugar, from Auntie, Mabel, for example. We actually did that when we was kids. My grandmother would always send, me and my siblings over to my Aunt Mabel's house to borrow some sugar. If we didn't borrow sugar, we borrowed ketchup. We use resources around us. Same thing in the projects. People borrow stuff in the projects all the time and return it. and they just as happy just with the little things they got, because as long as they got their families around and they're tight knit and they look out for each other, neighbors look out for each other, they're okay. And hell, some people out here to this day in 2025 don't have a car. They don't have the necessary resources to get around. But I be seeing a lot of people, especially around here in Virginia, taking the bus passes, riding the bus. Hell, the bus is free, so there's no excuse for you to not to ride public transit. And if people not riding the bus, they on foot. If they not on foot, they on a bike. And I'm just like, if they can find a way to still get to the grocery store without a vehicle and still be content and happy, they are really enjoying their life. Because you'd be surprised if the shoe was on the other foot and you took away somebody's nice ass, lavish ass car. Say, for example, somebody has a Tesla or a Mercedes. You take that away from them for like a week and you see how far they survive without a vehicle and how quickly they break because they're just so used to driving everywhere. It would break them. And they would be so angry at the world and so miserable because now they have to ride public transit or walk on foot or ride a bike to get to their destination. They couldn't handle it. It would literally break them. I'm trying to tell you, I know what I'm talking about. If people would swap lives, you know how they have those reality shows where people swap lives to see how the other person's life is. A prime example of wife swap. They swapped each other's wives and they had different households and different experiences. If they did that to the rich and they swap lives with the poor, just to see how it is for a week and see how long it takes them to survive without their riches of gold and their nice fancy home, and now they're in bumfuck nowhere in the projects. You see how long they'll last. I guarantee you, if you stuck a millionaire or a billionaire inside the hood, they would not last more than 24 hours. They would lose their everlasting mind. They would literally be locked up in a cuckoo's nest. I'm trying to tell you, I know what I'm talking about. You put a po person or po family in a mansion, it would be the same exact way, except they might be a little bit happier, but then they might not know how to act and it might break them. Because then they're like, damn, this is how rich people live. And then it's like, how are we supposed to feel now that we're in this lavish mansion and we're far away from the city? Because, people who are rich, they don't live in the city. I'm going to tell you that right now. A lot of millionaires and billionaires live outside the city, but they send their errand boys or their assistants to do their shopping. They don't do their own shopping. I'm going to tell you that right now. A lot of them have assistants. They have chauffeurs. They don't even drive half the time if they do go places. Like, you will never see them do their own shopping. And if you do, it's very rare because they really want that specific item. That's the only reason why they came out of their nice, fancy home. But yeah, you take a project family, you put them in a mansion and see how long they last after 24 hours. They would probably tear up that whole entire house because they don't know how to act. Or they would be so humble and so grateful to be in a nicer space than what they're used to. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves. Either way, like, it's going to break them. It's going to break each party. Same thing with the rich people. They would probably break out into tears and cry and want to go back to their precious mansion after 24 hours because they don't know how to survive in the hood and they're afraid of foreign environments. They never probably been around po folks. They never probably been around black folks. Hell. And I'm not even saying majority of the hood is black, but a lot of low income class neighborhoods are minorities. That includes black, That includes Hispanic. That includes Asian. That includes Indian. I've seen a lot. And to be honest, once upon a time when I was struggling, when times were a little bit rough, I lived in the hood. Oh, yes. Very first apartment, Southeast Austin in Texas. Lived in baby Mexico is what I called it. I had no idea it was the hood because the place seemed so nice. I had a mackin' ass apartment, fireplace inside, real peaceful, real quiet. Neighbors didn't bother me. A lot of Hispanic neighbors, but I didn't think nothing of it. And then one day, I'm sitting there in my living room watching TV and I hear a whole drive-by go by. Didn't realize it. I thought it was somebody's TV and found out somebody ended up dying. And I was just like, yep, time to move. But yeah, like sometimes depending on the situation, it could go either right or you can go way left. And in that situation, it went way left. But again, it was a very peaceful hood. People looked out for each other. Nobody bothered me. Nobody ever broke into my shit. Thank you, Jesus. And everybody minded their own damn business. But you don't get that everywhere. I'm not saying every project area is like that. That was just that one specific area I stayed in. But sometimes, depending on your situation, I would say, yes, people with money are 10 times happier than people without money because the struggle is real. However, that does not mean that they're always happy. That does not mean that they're always, floating on cloud nine because they have money. Money can make them also very miserable. Like I said, it works either way. But anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys believe that people who do have money are 10 times happier than people who don't have money? Let me know. I'm curious. All right? All right.